Anders was a man whose life passion was to discover and preserve the beauty and value of plants and their ecosystems. He regarded the trees and plants of the Illawarra region like a family, and he made it his personal crusade to preserve an essential biodiversity of our region for future generations. For someone whose antecedents were in the chilly climes of Scandinavia, he had the affinity of an Indigenous Australian for our oneness with the environment. He understood the language of the country, and he walked the land with the knowledge and confidence of someone for whom it was a birthright. It was a knowledge that combined the European formality of botanical Latin with an understanding of the ancient Aboriginal culture that sustained our environment over the centuries. It was as if he knew every tree in the region as an individual. Those who worked with him would watch in awe as he found a particular tree he was looking for, even if it was several years since he had last seen it, greeting it like an old friend. As a biologist, Anders worked in the Wollongong Botanical Gardens, where he started as a trainee back in the 1980s. His obsession was seeds of every description, lovingly collected from our region's forests, to be stored in bags, trays that overflowed his office. He was responsible for most of the rainforest plantings in the botanical gardens, of which he was immensely proud. But his realm was much wider than that and spanned the entire Illawarra region. Anders was only too well aware of just how much our environment had been degraded over the past 200 years, and how immense the task of preserving so many of our endangered plant communities that face the risk of extinction. His office was a gathering place of botany students from across the road at the university, because above all, Anders was a teacher who liked to share his immense botanical knowledge with others. He was always looking for ways to educate more people about the need for environmental action. He would tell people, "What we have lost is a national tragedy, but what's done is done. The question now is how are we going to protect what is left?" The loss of Anders Bofeldt will make the task that little bit harder, but he leaves a great legacy. He left the forests in his wake, and we will cherish him every time we see his trees. We will also remember the enthusiasm and encouragement he shared so readily with others in his quest to raise awareness about the loss of biodiversity. And of course, there are the seeds, thousands of them. If seeds represent wealth to be invested in the future, then Anders leaves in his legacy a true cornucopia of riches. Landcare Illawarra's project officer Richard Scarborough, together with helpers from Conservation Volunteers Australia, the Green Corp and Warrigal Nursery, are gradually working their way through Anders' unique collection, deciphering his handwritten records, photographing, cataloguing the receipts, converting them to tube stock, and making sure they are preserved as a living and growing legacy for a man who dedicated himself to the preservation of the environment. Anders Bofeldt passed away in June this year at the tragically young age of 46.